Hey guys, it's Jang from the friendly forums at ultimaterc.com, and in this video I'm going to be taking a closer look at the Stampede 4x4 VXL, the ready-to-run vehicle that just came out in late 2010 from Traxxas, not a custom version. And you've probably seen my review video already, which is kind of an initial review, going through my first impressions after taking a couple of batteries worth of driving through the truck, taking a look at some of the basic features of it. In this video I'm going to get down and dirty, get a little bit closer, look at some of the individual parts with a little bit more detail, do a little bit of comparison also. First of all, just overall, taking a look at the vehicle, it is based on the Slash 4x4 platform, but is a much smaller vehicle than the Slash 4x4. That's the reason why I actually have a couple of other vehicles here close by, because I just wanted to very quickly show you just what the size difference is. I'm going to just pull the body off very briefly, and of course this is Chimera A, which is my Slash 4x4 based all-terrain basher truck, and just putting it on top, you can see the difference in size between the two. So this here is all Slash 4x4, stock Slash 4x4 width and wheelbase. The width actually comes out to be just about the same with these wide offset wheels I've got in there, but you can see that the length is very different, making the Stampede a much smaller vehicle. The difference in wheelbase is actually about 2 inches between the two. The Stampede 4x4's wheelbase is actually under 11 inches. It's close to 10 3/4 inches, which is why they're able to mount this regular Stampede body. This is actually the Stampede body that came out with the Stampede VXL, and it's using the standard stock two-wheel drive body mounting posts on it, and it ends up fitting pretty well. The only thing that I don't like about the body fitting here is the height of it. You can see it's very clear that the body is actually, the bottom of the body, the bottom trim line is actually above the top of the chassis tub, and especially with the light gray Traxxas plastic that they're using right now, the fiber reinforced plastic without extra dye in it, it kind of sticks out a little bit like a sore thumb. That's definitely something that if you get into customizing the vehicle a little bit to get a little bit nicer look out of it, you might want to trim down those body posts a little bit, slam that body down. It's got plenty of room for clearance. Before I zoom in a little bit closer, I just want to show you the comparison with the body off again in size to the 1/16th scale Traxxas Summit. Now, this is supposed to be 1/16th scale, this is supposed to be 1/10th scale. They're both single motor, single battery, all-terrain bashers, but you can see with the body off that the actual difference in size between the chassis now is not tremendous. It's not a huge difference. I mean, there's obviously a difference there, but when you start to think about portability or just the overall size and impression that you get of driving the vehicle around, the Stampede 4x4 is not a huge vehicle by any means, and this really helps to put it into perspective when you start to see that the overall size between the so-called 1/16th scale and so-called 1/10th scale is not that tremendous. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get these guys out of the way here. This is the way that it comes right out of the box. Of course, it doesn't come with the dirt on the tires. I already ran it a little bit, boo-hoo. But this is the completely stock setup. Comes with the 3000 milliamp 7-cell battery pack. It's a nickel metal hydride, and they have a little wall charger they include. So if you don't have any equipment whatsoever, all you need are 4 AA's and a little bit of patience for that battery to charge up, and you'll be ready to drive. I'm going to go ahead and turn it around so you can focus more on the electronics. It's the same electronics setup that they're using on most of their 1/10th scale vehicles now. It's got the Traxxas 2075 waterproof servo, the waterproof VXL 3S speed control, and then the 3500 kV Volenion motor, which is a 540 size motor. It's a 36 millimeter diameter and a little bit longer than 50 millimeters long. Pretty much the standard for sensorless brushless motors now for 10th scale use. Now the tires on the Stampede 4x4 are the same as you'll find on the Stampede VXL and the two-wheel drive normal brushed version. And these are of course a little bit larger and heavier than what you would find on a short course truck. So relative to the short course version of this overall platform, they've geared it down. So while the Slash 4x4 is running a 13-tooth pinion with a 54-tooth spur, this one is running the same 54-tooth spur, but it has an 11-tooth pinion. And after the driving that I did with this vehicle, which was mixed between running on-road, running on an off-road track, and running on a dirt field, and also going over some rough terrain, doing some slow speed stuff, going through some grass, the temperature on this motor after running a 7.4 volt 2-cell LiPo pack was warm, but not hot at all. So the gearing that they've got on there is working out well for it. Now because this chassis is shortened by 2 inches versus the Slash 4x4 that it's based on, there had to be a little bit of reorganizing of the electronics, which is why you no longer have the receiver box mounted right here like it was on the Slash 4x4. They just ended up moving it up to the front, and they really had to compact this section here, so much so that if you look down in there, you'll see that one of the screws that holds down the speed control is actually doing double duty. It's also helping to hold in the servo. It's going through one of the eyelets on the servo tab there on the side. Flipping this around one more time, you're going to see one of the subtle differences versus the early Slash 4x4 versions. One of the things that was bad for durability and maintenance on the original Slash 4x4 was this cover. This clear cover that goes over the entire center drive shaft had a huge hole back here. Well, this version does not. You can see that the cover goes all the way. It goes over the slipper nut and helps to really truly protect the drive shaft from any debris that's coming down from above now. There are still very small little cracks, so dust can get in there, and also water can still get through in many locations, which is why they still do have some drainage holes at key locations, key low locations throughout the entire chassis, including the corners. There's a low spot back here. There's also a low spot underneath the battery tray, so the water doesn't pool up and just stay there. On the underside, however, there is still a weak point, a place where dirt can get in and very small rocks can get in. And that's right here at the front, where the drive shaft, the center drive shaft, exits and heads out to the compartment that has the diff in it, the front diff. So there is still a little bit of space around here, and if you want, you can help to seal that up by building up some heat shrink tubing, shrinking that down around the shaft here, or you can just build up some electrical tape. Some people cut a piece of foam there, just have it lightly in contact with the shaft itself. A bunch of different things you can do to cover that up, but at least we've got more coverage from the top. While we're looking at it underneath here, I also want to point out that this Stampede 4x4 also does use the metal front hub adapter, the adapter that connects between the center shaft and the input to the diff. It's a little bit tough to see here, but it's no longer a plastic piece like it was early on with the Slash 4x4. They are using the metal version now, so a little bit more durability there. Shock towers are the same as on the Slash 4x4, front and rear. Also, the shocks are the same. They are still those good old Ultra shocks, the all plastic Ultra shocks that Traxxas has been using forever. They've just updated the design probably 4 years ago to include better seals, but overall the same general design, the same length as you would find on the two-wheel drive vehicles, the same length that you would find on the Slash 4x4, but this one is using linear springs, unlike the Slash 4x4. Regular linear springs, there's a lot of preload in them. It's actually fully preloaded, so the suspension here is extended all the way, and the spring is still compressed a little bit. and that's actually working to stiffen up the spring rate a little bit, as you might have seen in my suspension 101 videos. Now, these all plastic shocks are actually great as they are. The only one thing that's bad about them is that the shock caps can pop off if you take a really hard landing. If there gets to be too much pressure built up in there, or a little bit of angular force comes onto them, the threads will actually pop off a little bit. It's not going to cause any breakage, but it is an annoyance. You have to screw it back in. I always do recommend, and most Traxxas veterans do recommend, that you just replace the shock caps with the aluminum ones from Traxxas, or you can also get aluminum ones from Team STRC that will fit these bodies just a little bit better, and then you're golden. If you have any differences that you want in terms of the performance, the handling of the vehicle, you want it to absorb bumps better, you want it to absorb jumps better, you want it to be stiffer, you want it to be softer, all you need to do is change out the oil, the pistons, or the springs. You don't need to upgrade to all aluminum shocks, especially if you're on a budget, and there are a lot of better things that you can do with that money. Now, while I'm looking at the shocks, these shock guards are a point of interest for sure with the new Stampede 4x4. These are all new parts that just came out for it, and in addition to providing just a physical blockage here that's helping to prevent, and you can see these have already had some use, they're preventing rocks and dirt clods and other bad things in terrain from jumping out and clipping off the bottoms of your shocks. This was a weak point of having shocks bolted right onto the front of the vehicle. You could easily hit rocks, and I actually did exactly this. One of my first battery packs that I put through the Slash 4x4, I just sheared off the bottom by hitting a rock exactly wrong. These are going to help prevent a lot of damage to the shocks, and they're going to make these stock plastic shocks more durable than they have ever been. Another additional thing that these do is that they actually capture. You can see that there's a screw here and there's a screw here. The screw here just goes into the mounting point for the sway bars, the optional sway bars that were available for the Slash 4x4. So you lose that hole here, but this screw here is actually going right through the shock eyelet itself. It might be a little bit difficult to see that here, but if you look down in there, you can see that the eyelet is now captured completely. On one side by the A-arm, on the other side by the shock guard. The shock guards are not the same front and rear. If you look at the front ones, they actually had to cut these in a little bit in order to get clearance for these big tires to go either way. As a result, the front shock guards only have 3 holes, only 3 options for lower shock mounting points. So you lose a bunch of the mounting points up front, particularly the outermost ones. The rear shock guards, on the other hand, they're not cut in quite as much. They seem to be cut in a little bit more than they need to be, but they do give you 1 more hole, so you have a total of 4 holes. You're still missing the outermost one that you're not able to access with these guards. Otherwise, though, these guards, certainly on the rear, are going to fit the Slash 4x4 just fine. Up front, though, I have not, as of the time of this video, I've not yet actually tested putting on these short course front wheels and tires, so I cannot guarantee yet that they will clear the wheels once they turn, because the short course wheels have a lot less offset. I'm not sure if they'll clear that yet, but I will check that out later on and post up my experience on that on the Stampede forum at Ultimate RC. One other thing that I wanted to point out, I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but the wheels here are actually front offset all the way around. They're the same offset as the front of a electric Wrestler or the front of an electric Stampede, the 2-wheel drive version, or the rear of a Jado or Nitro Wrestler. So you combine that front offset, which actually makes them wider. They stand farther apart or farther off from the center line of the chassis, combined with the fact that the slash 4x4 arms, which are used all the way around here, those being the same length as the Stampede or Rustler electric rears all the way around. And this is effectively a wide Stampede stock. It's using the rear length arms, which is exactly the same as the so-called Jag mod, which I first did, I don't know, it was 2002 or something like that, on my two-wheel drive Stampede, which adds a bunch of width, and then you combine that with the extra offset of the front offset wheels, and you end up with a much more stable vehicle than the original two-wheel drive Stampede ever was. Looking back at the back here, you've got a wheelie bar set up. It's pretty much the standard wheelie bar that they've been using nowadays. It is adjustable. Of course, they had to come up with some custom mounts to mount up to the Stampede 4x4/4x4 rear sections here, but it's the adjustable version, which just clips in. It's really an ingenious design, the way that they came up with this. You can change the angle of the wheelie bar from all the way down here all the way up to here, and the upper piece, which rotates, it just clips in wherever you want it to be. You just snap it in and it holds itself in place. At least in theory, it holds itself in place. If you look carefully in my review video and also in my track driving video, just the raw footage that I put up on YouTube, you'll see that there are several points where the truck is driving around on the track with basically the wheelie bar just flopping around like this. It's because when you actually take an impact to the rear, especially if you land nose high and one of these wheels kind of catches on the ground, or it tends to bend a little bit this way, like so, these clips are actually going to pull out, and then it's going to end up just flopping around. I actually had that happen to me quite a bit while I was out there. A number of times I kept having to put it back. So I think it would probably be a good idea to super glue these down, or put a small 2mm screw through there, a nice long set screw, just to hold it in place if you do have that problem where these come out frequently. It can definitely get annoying. Or if you don't feel the need to have a wheelie bar at all, you can just take that off. I do recommend having something back here, though. Don't try to cut off all of this entire assembly. It is good to have something back here, otherwise you're going to end up damaging your body a lot. Unless you have a really short cut-off body, it's still going to hit the Lexan, and that's just unnecessary damage that would come up. At the front end, it's also new compared to the slash 4x4. It has a medium-sized bumper, and you can see that it doesn't stick out very much. It doesn't even stick out as far as the tires. So if you land nose down, you can actually power out of it. This being a four-wheel drive vehicle, you can land like this and hit the throttle about halfway. You don't want to go too hard, too heavy on it, especially if you have a lot of traction. That can put a lot of strain on your drivetrain, but you can kind of land like this and give it a little bit of juice, rather than the front end digging in and actually stopping you and flipping you forward. By having that bumper being nice and short like that, you land on the front tires, power out, and you're back on all four tires again. Alright, so that's it for my closer look at the Traxxas Stampede 4x4. Sorry my voice was going out a little bit there, but hope this was useful information for you. Be sure, if you have not already, be sure to see my actual initial review video of the Stampede 4x4, which came out a day before this video here. That includes some driving video. I also have some raw footage from that first day of driving on my channel. Be sure to subscribe to the Ultimate RC Network channel if you're interested in more videos about RCs, particularly RC land vehicles. And you can discuss the all-new Stampede 4x4 VXL in the Stampede forum at ultimaterc.com. So I hope to see you there, and I'll talk to you again soon.